Hey guys, Ron here with BBM Reptiles. Thank you again for taking the time for stopping by my channel. And if you're new, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and follow me along in this incredible journey of reptile keeping, specifically working with ball pythons. Guys, this was one of those incredible clutches that I had no idea I would have actually been in the possession of actually hatching out. And it's just curious because with this, I paired my most anticipated pairings that I have of the season, which was a male pastel super gravel to my female ivory. Now, they're both supers. Now, we have the pastel, which is super gravel, which is a super form, obviously, of the gravel gene. And I wanted to make sure that when I started that project, I started with the super version because the problem with the gravel and the yellow belly being it basically hard to actually identify or separating each one. So working with the ivory specifically, well, I was looking for basically to hit at least some pastel highways or some minimum highways. And you had no idea basically when I started cutting that first clutch and opening up when I saw a white snake. Now a white snake is obviously would be an ivory, so how can I actually hatch an ivory in this clutch? Anyway, I figured I had two options. I mean, like if one, I put my smart glasses on and try to basically walk you through the genetics, or I have one of the four horsemen help me out with this. And that was Rob from Royal Balls. And obviously, I went with Rob. But the glasses do kind of make me look smart, don't they? Anyway, Rob, can you help me out with this?
Hi guys, it's Rob from Royal Balls. This is my first collaboration video with Ron alone, one of the four horsemen. The four horsemen were discussing the results of Ron's latest clutch that he asked me to do a demonstration, my Professor Ball's pipe cleaner genetic explanation for what's happened with his latest clutch, and it's an honour to do that for Ron, so let's get after it. So Ron's pairing from a genetic standpoint is a very powerful one. First of all, the genes are all in the same complex. Gravel and yellow belly are part of the yellow belly complex, so they all occupy the same address or locus on the genetic material, and he's using two supers. He's using a super gravel as the male and a super yellow belly or ivory as the female. So using the power of the super form pretty much guarantees the outcome. As usual, we split our genetic material in half because we're producing eggs and sperm, and only half of the genetic material is transferred in each, and it's recombined into the complete animal in the offspring. So if we pair this half of the male's genetic material to this half of the female, or to this half of the female, we get one copy of gravel and one copy of yellow belly, which is a highway. If we pair the other half of the male's genetic material to either half of the female, we get exactly the same outcome. So in this particular case, using a super gravel to a super yellow belly or ivory guarantees that all the offspring will be highways. Gravel yellow belly is passed on to each of the offspring, so they will all be highways. What a fantastic combination. The male is pastel, which is a co-dominant gene, so we know he's going to pass that gene on 50% of the time. So all of these highways, 50% of them could also be pastel. So what a fantastic outcome. So of course when Ron told me the first egg's pipped and it's an ivory, I said that's impossible. You cannot get an ivory using this combination. And he said, well, it's not just one ivory, they're all ivories. And of course Ron's pretty upset because not only is the outcome not what he expected, but you start to go through all sorts of possibilities. Well, the male's not a super gravel, he was sold as a super gravel, he's not a super gravel. You've used this male before and he has produced a pastel gravel for you, so you know at least he's got one copy of gravel in him. And Ron said, what if he's a highway? And I said, well, even if he's a highway, which is a gravel yellow belly and not a super gravel, that still does not explain the outcome that you've just seen. So let's take a look at what would happen if the male was actually a highway and not a super gravel. So this time again, yellow belly is occupying the same locus or address because they are allelic. So in this particular case now, the female is an ivory, which is a white snake, very distinctive, no mistaking that. And we're just working through the possibilities of what would happen if the male was actually a highway. So again, we split the genetic material in half, and we take this half of the male's genetic material, which is carrying the yellow belly gene, and we pair it to this half of the female or to this half of the female, and sure enough, in that case we get yellow belly, which is ivory. So 50% of the outcome is in this case ivory, but the other 50%, when you pair this half which is carrying gravel to the female, the other outcomes are actually a highway and a highway. So even if the male is just a highway and not a super gravel, that still does not explain our outcome. You've got 2 ivories and 2 highways. 50% of these babies will also be pastel because the male is also carrying pastel. So you start to think of what the possibilities might be. The male is obviously not an ivory because he's not a white snake. Clearly he's something else. So whatever combination of genes he is carrying, you cannot get this outcome. Did you use a backup male for this pairing? And is that backup male an ivory? No. Well, what about retained sperm? As a scientist, you want to rule out all other potential possibilities. What about retained sperm from last year? Is she a first-time female, or did she breed last year? She bred last year, but she hasn't been paired to anything that has yellow belly in it. So we can rule out retained sperm. We can rule out a backup male. What else does our knowledge of genetics tell us that might help us to work out what's actually happened in this pairing? So actually, the only way that you can produce a clutch of all ivories is if you pair an ivory to an ivory. So the male is an ivory, the female is an ivory, super yellow belly, and it doesn't matter which half of the genetic material you pair to which half of the genetic material, the outcome is all ivory. Now we know the male certainly wasn't an ivory, but it is possible to get ivories from an ivory to an ivory. It's even possible potentially to get all ivories from a highway to yellow belly pairing. It would be statistically highly improbable, but still within the realms of scientific possibility. However, in ball pythons, sexual determination is by the male. It's the XY chromosome system, and the female is carrying 2 copies of the X chromosome. It's the male that is the heterogametic sex. He is carrying 1 X and 1 Y chromosome, and it is actually the male that determines the sex of the offspring in ball pythons. So in this particular case, pairing an ivory to an ivory, the male would pass on the Y chromosome 50% of the time. So this is the female side of our male ball python carrying the Y chromosome. So half of the babies are going to be XXXX, which is female, and half of the babies are going to be XYXY. So in this particular case, we get all ivories, but there is 50% male and 50% female. What is the other possibility that could produce all ivories for us? And the answer to that is, well, what happens if there was no male involved in this pairing at all? What happens if this is parthenogenesis? Parthenogenesis is defined as development of an embryo from an egg that is not fertilized. So what happens in parthenogenesis is that the female produces an egg, and she gives the egg both sides of her genetic material. There is no male involved at all. So in this case, she's going to reproduce herself. She's going to effectively clone herself. So if this is the case, and this is genuine parthenogenesis, all the babies will be ivories, and none of them will contain any other gene. They will be exact copies of mum with nothing else. The other thing that happens in parthenogenesis is, and this is why sex determination, it's necessary to have an understanding of sex determination, the male is the partner that determines the sex. and because the female is an XX chromosome animal, the only thing that she can give to her non-fertilized eggs is an XX combination, which means in parthenogenesis not only will all the babies be exact copies of mum genetically, they will also all be female. The reason that they're all female is that the mother has no Y chromosome to give any of the offspring. She can only give X chromosomes, so she can only produce clones of herself, which is female. So I said to Ron, you can stop worrying about the male not being what he was sold as, because the male can't possibly be the father of this clutch. Could you just go check for me all of those ivory babies, make sure there is no pastel in them, and make sure that they are all female? I think what we're looking at here is parthenogenesis, and our knowledge of genetics, how genetics works, and our knowledge of how sex determination works in ball pythons will enable us to determine whether this is true parthenogenesis or not. So that's the science. Okay guys, so that's the pipe cleaner video and explanation behind the results of Ron's latest clutch. It's easy to think all sorts of possible explanations, but actually the science is pretty straightforward and pretty clear. So I hope you enjoyed that. Back to Ron.
Okay guys, just to show you, this is the amazing thing about this, is that as you can see, they're all ivories. Now, there is one, for example, that I saw on the head stamp and I saw it was pretty dark, and I figured, wow, maybe it could be, but no, there's no doubt about it. Basically, it's ivory, and they're all females. They're all females. I'm gonna do this one real quick. She hasn't shed yet. Let's see if she'll let me actually do it. As you can see, right there, female. And they're clones. I mean, like, they're clones of the mother. All, and I did, like I said, I did hatch a few that came out kinked. But yeah, this is the Parthenogenesis clutch. This is something that actually, you know, I was amazed actually. This was, as a matter of fact, this is the first one that came out the egg. This is the first one. It's kind of, I don't know why, but it kind of looks, I mean, like, yeah, it's about to shed. You can see by the eyes. And there was one that I don't know why I don't see it now, but it kind of looked like it was, this is the one, yeah. This one has a small kink on the tail. If you can actually see that right there. You see how it's bent? This one right there, it has that kink right there. But besides that, I think this is the one that I popped, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that's the only defect on this one, besides obviously that they're all parthos, so they're all females. But yeah, this is the ivory clutch that I was talking about, that I'm upset actually to the point that I didn't get to pass any pastel highways. And I'm even more shocked to see that I actually got to produce these. Thanks, Rob. I really needed your help. I mean, like, honestly, I know I wasn't gonna get too far with these glasses, but I mean, like, it's mind-blowing, guys. I mean, like, when you think about it, Parthenogenesis, I mean, like, even the word, I mean, like, even took me a while. You have no idea how many times I had to put the voice search on Wikipedia just to pronounce that right. Parthenogenesis. Anyway, a parthro. The thing is that for so many other breeders, maybe they can go on the fact that basically they had all females. But now specifically having those two supers, that I know that it had to be basically a combined form, which would have been a highway, and that not happening, seeing the ivory come out of those clutches, it actually, I mean, like, if it wasn't because of that, because it was an ivory, I probably wouldn't have even thought about a parthro clutch. I mean, like, it would never, you know, dawned on me. But going through it and seeing that the female actually, she just cloned herself. It's I mean, like, it's mind-baffling just to think about that. I mean, like, I know in the past I've actually had people talk about parthro clutches, but I never actually looked into it or even deeper to see what the potential of that could mean. Now, I've been doing my own background check on that, and it is unfortunate that they say that the clutches from parthos, they do not survive as long as a normal ball python. As a matter of fact, and this is a strange thing about this, the Partho clutch. In other words, those clutch that just came out, to ensure their survival. They'll live long enough to basically mate and produce a viable clutch. After they mate and they do produce those clutches, they perish, or they don't go too long after that. Basically, a year after that, there's a decline. Then it's kind of like they serve their purpose and they basically fade away. So because they don't have such a strong survival rate, because of them missing that other half of the genetics, I'd figure that the best thing I could do with these ball pythons is I already reached out to a few people that actually have acquired snakes from me in the past, and I decided to gift these snakes to them. Something like a thank you for actually supporting me so long. And I'm gonna stay with two. I want to prove out the theory to see that if actually I could get them breeding. Anyway, guys, I mean, like, it's an incredible clutch seeing this, and I want to share it with you. And heck, it's never surprised me each season, something that actually knocks it out the park. And even it's not what I expected, just to have the experience alone is something more that I could jot in my book. Anyway, guys, again, thank you very much for stopping by my channel. And again, if you're new, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. Follow me along this incredible journey, because it's just gonna get better. Thanks a lot, guys, and I will see you in the next video.